We're now going to discuss the different sampling techniques. From your target population with size capital N, we are now going to get the representation lowercase n, which is your sample. The effective sample produces a size n, which is the representative of capital N, the target population. Sampling. Sampling is the basis for inferential statistics. A sample is a segment of the population. It is therefore expected to reflect the population. By studying the characteristics of the sample, one can make inferences about the population. There are several reasons why we take a part of the population to study rather than taking full census of the population. These are: sampling takes less time. Samples cost less. Samples are more accurate. Sample observations are usually of higher quality because they are better screened for errors in measurement and for duplications and misclassifications. Samples can be destroyed to gain information about quality or destructive sampling. Imagine doing some blood tests. A random sample is a sample obtained in such a way that each possible sample is fixed size n, has equal probability of being selected. Let us now categorize sampling into two. First is the probability sampling, in which a sample has a known and non-zero chance of being selected. A non-probability sampling, members of the population are not given equal chances of being selected. So for non-probability sampling, deliberately we remove some parts of the population to be a member of the sample. The picture on the right side represents the random numbers. So currently we are using calculator and computers to do the randomization for us. Before, they use random numbers for the randomization. Now let us consider the four probability sampling techniques. So, simple random sampling. For simple random sampling, samples are drawn from a population using a method such as lottery method or using computer or calculated generated random numbers. So this is also known as the fishbowl technique. You have your population inside a fishbowl and a sample is taken from the population using the lottery style of drawing your sample. For stratified sampling, you subdivide your population into at least two different subpopulation or strata. So let's have this as your population. So what you're going to do is to divide your population into different groups. And from your groups, you're going to get representatives. So for every group, maybe you can get two. And this would represent your sample. For systematic sampling, we choose some starting point and then select every kth element in the population. So we set a certain pattern and then we get the kth element. So this would represent your sample. Now another way of thinking of this would be taking your body temperature every 4 hours in the hospital, taking your blood sample for constant interval of days or months. So when you're having dengue, I think you're being monitored every 12 hours for blood samples. Um, Taking the blood pressure, we're going to also have our annual checkup. So there is taking the sample or taking the data at constant interval of time. Next is cluster sampling. We divide the population into sections, and then so you have your population. So what we do is to divide it into cluster, and then choose all the members of the selected region. So say for example, we choose this entire region. So this would represent your sample. Now let's have the non-probability sampling techniques. So for the non-probability sampling techniques, we are going to have three. First is the convenience, haphazard, or accidental sampling. Members of the population are chosen based on their relative ease of access. To sample friends, co-workers, and or shoppers at a single mall are all examples of convenient sampling. So what is convenient? What is easy to do? Such samples are biased because researchers may consciously approach some kinds of respondents and avoid others, and respondents who volunteer for a study may differ in unknown but important ways from others. For snowball sampling, the first respondent refers to an acquaintance. So we might consider having your first few respondents are your friends. Now they also have their friends. So we are going to have our network of respondents. Now intentionally, some of the people who do not have direct relationship with those who are surveyed would not be part of the sample. So that's for the snowball sampling. Next is the judgmental sampling or purposive sampling. The researcher chooses the sample based on who they think would be appropriate for the study. This is used primarily when there's a limited number of people that have the expertise in the area being researched, or when the interest of the research is on the specific field or a small group. Now, under purposive sampling, we have three subcategories. The deviant case. The researcher obtains cases that substantially differ from the dominant pattern. The case is selected in order to obtain the information on unusual cases that can be specially problematic or specially good. So we may consider the top 5 students or the top 10 students or the bottom 10 students. For the case study, the research is limited to one group, often with the similar characteristics or of small size. So case study. And then we also have the quota sampling after establishing the number of participants, a quota. So we establish the quota and then the researchers are free to choose any respondent as long as the quota is met. These are some of the problems, and you may wish to identify what sampling technique has been used for each of the types given or described here. These are the references used for the first few lessons. Have a good day.